The alarm systems across Galactic Council Space Station Nexus 7 screamed warnings into the cold vacuum. Every species represented in the Grand Chamber turned their various sensory organs toward the massive display screens. Something impossible had just appeared on their sensors. Ambassador Tejo felt his heart stop. The ship's signature was unmistakable, even after 47 years. The UES Defiant, the human exploration vessel that had vanished near the void expanse in 2500. He had attended Captain Hyenseek's memorial service himself. He remembered the captain's wife crying, holding their daughter's hand. The entire crew of 300 souls, gone forever. Or so they thought. That cannot be accurate, Counselor Velmer said. The tall Therian leaned forward, his four eyes narrowing. Human vessels do not simply reappear after half a century, but the sensors did not lie. The Defiant was real, and it was broadcasting a signal. Tejo listened as Hyenseek's voice filled the chamber. The captain sounded older, tired, but alive. This is Captain Hyenseek of the United Earth ship Defiant. We survived. We learned, and we brought back insurance. The word hung in the air like a threat. The Council immediately dispatched 3 warships to intercept and scan the returning vessel. Standard procedure for any ship emerging from quarantine zones. Tejo watched the tactical display as the ships approached. Then something strange happened. The scanning equipment failed. Not just malfunctioned, but failed completely. The energy readings made no sense. Power signatures that should not exist appeared and vanished. The ship's hull seemed to exist in multiple states at once. What did you find out there? Tejo whispered to himself. The Defiant moved steadily toward the station. It looked different from the exploration vessel that had left Earth decades ago. Strange additions covered the hull. Geometric patterns that hurt to look at too long. Weapon ports that seemed too large for a science ship. And an energy field surrounding it that made even the most advanced sensors useless. The council chamber erupted in argument. The Therians demanded the ship submit to immediate quarantine. The Solarians wanted to destroy it before it came closer. The Avarian representative suggested negotiation. Humans were known for reason, after all. They were a young species barely 200 years into space travel. They had always followed the rules until now. Tejo requested permission to speak directly with the Defiant. The council agreed, though Velmer made his disapproval clear. The communication channel opened, and Tejo saw his old friend's face for the first time in 47 years. Hyenseek had aged, but not in a normal way. His hair was completely white. Deep lines marked his face. His eyes held something new. Something hard and ancient, Hyenseek Tejo said carefully. What happened to you? The captain smiled, but it was not a happy expression. We found something, old friend. Something the galaxy needs to know about. But first, we need to talk. Which is us. Just humans. The council protested, but Tejo switched to a private Earth channel. Hyenseek's smile faded. We were trapped, Tejo. Trapped in a place between spaces. We found ruins there. A civilization that died fighting something terrible. They left behind their technology, their weapons. We had no choice but to use them to survive and escape. What kind of weapons? The kind that should not exist. The kind that break the fundamental rules of reality. But we brought them back because that thing they were fighting is still out there, and it knows about our galaxy now. Tejo felt cold. Hyenseek, the Council will never allow Earth to possess such weapons. You know this. I know. That is why I'm giving them a choice. Work with us, or watch their fleets become irrelevant. Hyenseek's face hardened. We did not ask for this. We did not want to become what we are. But we survived something that killed a civilization far older and more advanced than anything in this galaxy. That means something. The private channel closed. Tejo returned to the council frequency. Velmer was already speaking, his voice full of authority. The Galactic Council cannot permit an unknown vessel with unknown capabilities to dock at our stations. The Defiant will submit to a full inspection. Or it will be classified as a hostile entity. I strongly advise against that course of action, Tejo said quickly. Your species does not dictate policy to the Council, Ambassador. 3 warships are already en route to escort the Defiant to Inspection Dock 7. If they resist, they will be disabled and boarded by force. On the tactical display, Taeho watched the warships move into formation around the human vessel. He tried to hail hide-and-seek again, but the captain did not respond. Instead, a new voice came over the channel. Female, younger, but equally tired. This is Dr. Nayoung, Chief Science Officer of the Defiant. Captain Hide-and-Seek has asked me to inform the Council that we will not be submitting to inspection. We will, however, demonstrate why that would be a poor decision. Please observe. One of the warships fired a warning shot across the Defiant's bow. Standard procedure. The energy beam should have passed harmlessly by. Instead, it curved in mid-space, turning back toward the ship that fired it. The warship shields barely held. That was your warning, Nayoung said calmly. The next ship to fire at us will learn what happens when cause and effect become negotiable. Captain Hide-and-Seek will dock at Bay 12 in 1 hour. He will bring evidence of the threat we all face. Until then, we suggest you do not interfere. The channel closed. The 3 warships held position but did not fire again. Taeho looked around the council chamber. Fear had replaced anger. Every species present understood what they had just witnessed. The humans had returned from the void carrying something that changed everything, and the galaxy was not ready for it. The emergency council session began exactly 1 hour later. Captain Hide-and-Seek stood at the center of the great chamber, flanked by 2 of his crew. Dr. Nayoung carried a data tablet. Lieutenant Seung-ho, the security officer, stood with the bearing of someone who had seen too much combat. Both looked as aged and worn as their captain. Hide-and-Seek began speaking without waiting for permission. 47 years ago, my ship entered the void expanse on a survey mission. We encountered a spatial anomaly. Before we could reverse course, it pulled us through into a pocket dimension. We were trapped. He activated a holographic display. Images appeared above the council floor. Massive structures floating in impossible space. Architecture that seemed to fold in on itself. And creatures, things that made several council members recoil in horror. They looked like holes in reality. Darkness given form and hunger. This is what we found. The ruins of the architect civilization. They existed millions of years before any of us. They were powerful beyond measure. And they lost a war against these entities. The dissolution, they called them. Beings from outside normal space-time. They consume reality itself. Elmer stood, his voice sharp. This is absurd. If such a threat existed, we would know. Our sensors would detect it. Your sensors cannot detect something that exists outside the dimensions you measure, Nayoung said. She touched her tablet, and new data flooded the displays. The architects fought the dissolution for 10,000 years. They built weapons designed to harm entities that do not follow physical laws. They failed. But they left their knowledge behind. 47 years, we lived in those ruins. We studied their technology. We fought off dissolution attacks. We learned, Hide-and-Seek continued, time moved differently there. What was 47 years here was much longer for us. We aged. We adapted. Engineer G1 integrated architect technology into our ship systems. Dr. Biomi learned to track dissolution movement patterns. Lieutenant Seung-ho trained us all for combat against enemies that can be in multiple places simultaneously. And you, Velmer said coldly, you became weapons experts. You learned to use technology that gives you power over every other species in this galaxy. Yes, Hide-and-Seek did not flinch. We did, because the alternative was death. But I am not here to threaten you. I am here to warn you. The dissolution found the pocket dimension because we were there. They studied us. They learned about our universe. And they are coming. We detected the first probes before we escaped. You have maybe 100 years before they break through into our galaxy. The council chamber exploded with noise. Species shouted over each other. Some called Hide-and-Seek a liar. Others demanded proof. A few simply looked terrified. Bomi stepped forward. The xenobiologist looked even more haunted than the others. I can provide proof, she said quietly. Her voice cut through the noise. I brought samples. Preserved dissolution tissue, if you can call it that. Matter that exists partially out of phase with our reality. Your scientists can examine it. They will confirm everything we say. And if we do not believe you? Velmer asked. If we decide that humanity has become too dangerous, what then? Hyansik met his gaze steadily. Then you will try to take our ship by force. You will fail, and humanity will prepare to face the dissolution alone. But billions will die because you were too proud to accept help from a younger species. Silence fell. Tejo watched his old friends stand firm under the weight of hundreds of alien eyes. The captain had changed. This was not the curious explorer who had left Earth decades ago. This was a soldier, a survivor, someone who had seen the end of everything and decided to fight anyway. Show us, the council speaker said finally. Show us these weapons. Demonstrate what you claim to possess. Then we will decide. Hyansik nodded slowly. Very well. But remember, you asked for this. 3 days later, the demonstration was arranged. A Therian battle fleet assembled in neutral space near the Council's testing grounds. 15 heavy warships, armed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. They formed a sphere around the Defiant. Weapons charged but not yet fired. This was meant to be a show of force. The Council wanted to see if humans would surrender when faced with overwhelming firepower. Tejo watched from an observation ship at a safe distance. He had argued against this. Argued that threatening Hyansik was a terrible mistake. But Velmer had pushed for it, and enough council members agreed. They needed to know if Earth's claims were real or exaggerated. Therian fleet to human vessel, Velmer's voice boomed across all frequencies. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will be met with force. Hyansik's response was calm. I warned you. This is your last chance to reconsider. You are surrounded by 15 warships, human. Your single vessel cannot possibly stand against us. You are correct. My single vessel cannot stand against you. But my weapons can. Hyansik paused. Dr. Nayoung, show them. The universe bent. Tejo had no better words for what happened next. Space itself seemed to twist around the Defiant. The Therian warships fired. Dozens of missiles and energy beams converged on the human vessel. They should have destroyed it instantly. Instead, the attack simply stopped existing. Not blocked. Not deflected. They ceased to be. The missiles vanished mid-flight. The energy beams dissipated into nothing. And then something worse happened. The warships began firing on each other. Their weapon systems activated without command. Targeting computers locked onto friendly vessels. Within seconds, the neat sphere formation became chaos. Causality disruptor active, Nayoung reported over the open channel. I am causing your weapons to achieve perfect accuracy. Unfortunately for you, I am defining the targets. 2 warships collided as their maneuvering systems failed. Another spun wildly as its engine output reversed. A 4th fired everything it had at the ship beside it. None of them could stop. Their own systems had turned against them. Probability shredder engaged, Nayoung continued. Her voice remained professional, almost bored. I am adjusting the quantum probability fields around your fleet. Unlikely events are becoming certainties. Certain events are becoming impossible. Your shields, for instance, have a 0.001% chance of failing randomly. I have made that certainty. One by one, the warship shields flickered and died. Not from external attack. Simply from impossible bad luck multiplied 1,000,000 times over, Hyansik's voice returned. We are currently operating at approximately 0.03% of our total capability. I could erase your fleet from existence. I could make it so your ships never existed in the first place. I could fold you into a dimension where physics works differently and you would die instantly. But I will not. Because we are not your enemies. He paused, letting that sink in. Engineer G1, restore their systems. Immediately, the Therian warships regained control. Weapons safeties engaged. Shields returned to normal. Engines stabilized. It was as if nothing had happened. except every sensor log would show how completely helpless they had been. "This is what we learned in the void," Hyansik said softly. "This is what we became to survive. The architects built weapons that manipulate causality, probability, dimensional boundaries, and time itself. We have them now, not because we wanted them, but because we needed them. And now you need them too." Lieutenant Sung-ho spoke for the first time. "The dissolution does not die from conventional weapons. Energy beams pass through them. Missiles explode without effect. They exist partially outside our reality. You need architect technology to fight them. You need us." Velmer's voice came back, shaken. "You have made your point, human. But you have also proven why no single species should possess such power. The Council will convene to discuss this matter." "Discuss quickly," Hyansik said, "because I have one more thing to show you." A new hologram appeared, transmitted to every Council ship. Deep space sensor readings from the edge of the galaxy. Anomalies. Tiers in space-time. And moving through them, the distinctive energy signatures of dissolution scouts. "They are already here," Hyansik said. "Not in force. But they are testing our dimensional barriers, finding weak points. The invasion has already begun. You just did not know what to look for." Yami added data to the display. "Based on the frequency of probe incursions, I estimate we have 18 months, maybe 2 years. Then they will have mapped enough of our reality to begin the full assault. After that, entire star systems will start disappearing. Reality itself will unravel." Taeho closed his eyes. His friend was right. Humanity had returned carrying weapons no civilization should possess. But they might be the only weapons that could save them all. The Therian fleet withdrew. No one fired. No one spoke. They simply left, returning to report to the Council. Taeho opened a private channel to the Defiant. "Hyansik, you have terrified them. They will not trust you now. But fear will make them listen. Trust can come later if we survive long enough. What will you do now? Wait. Hope they make the right choice. And if they do not prepare Earth for war, both against the dissolution and against the galaxy itself if necessary." The channel closed. Taeho looked at the distant stars and wondered which ones would vanish first. The galaxy fractured within days. News of the Defiance demonstration spread through every communication network. What the Council had intended as a secret test became the most talked-about event in civilized space. Species took sides. Alliances shifted. Ancient treaties were questioned. 3 major factions emerged from the chaos. The Coalition of Trust formed first. Humanity led it, obviously, but several smaller species joined immediately. The Avarians, who valued knowledge above fear. The Luminari, who had long-range sensors confirming the dimensional anomalies Biome had mentioned. And surprisingly, a splinter group of Therians, led by a military commander named Wrath, who believed the dissolution threat was real. "We cannot ignore the evidence," Wrath announced in his resignation from the main Therian government. "I have reviewed the data. I have consulted with our best scientists. The threat is real. If we do not prepare, we die. It is that simple." Ambassador Taeho worked day and night to hold the coalition together. Different species wanted different things. Some wanted access to all architect technology immediately. Others wanted guarantees that humans would not use their weapons against coalition members. A few simply wanted to be on the winning side when everything fell apart. "We will share defensive technology," Taeho promised in endless meetings. "Weapons designed to combat the dissolution. But certain weapons, the most dangerous ones, will remain under human control. Not because we do not trust you, but because these weapons can destroy reality itself. They require centuries of training to use safely. Training we barely have ourselves." On Earth, Admiral Hiram oversaw a massive military buildup. Captain Hyansik had transmitted complete architect database files to human space. Engineer G1 worked with Earth's best scientists to replicate the technology. Factories that had built conventional warships retooled for something new. Within months, the first architect-enhanced vessels began launching. The second faction called itself the Preservation. Front Counselor Velmer led it. The majority of Therian space joined, along with dozens of other species who saw humanity as the greater threat. They have made themselves weapons, Velmer declared in speeches broadcast across his territory. They claim to protect us, but who protects us from them? In one demonstration, they disabled 15 warships without taking damage. What happens when they decide we are in their way? What happens when they choose to conquer rather than cooperate? The Preservation Front began its own military buildup. They could not replicate architect technology without access to the database. But they could increase production of conventional weapons. Alliances were made. Battle plans were drawn. Secret shipyards and distant systems worked around the clock. Some species went further. Covert operations were authorized. Ships vanished near human space. Sabotage attempts were made on Earth's orbital facilities. None succeeded. The attempts were detected and stopped long before they reached their targets. Human sensor technology had advanced too far. They are using architect sensors, G1 explained to Admiral Hiram. They can detect threats before they occur by scanning multiple timelines simultaneously. We see what might happen and prevent it. That is terrifying, Hiram said quietly. Yes, but necessary. The Preservation Front will not stop. They fear us more than they fear the dissolution because they have seen us. The dissolution is still theoretical to them. The third faction was the isolationists. Thousands of species who wanted nothing to do with either side. They began preparing to leave. Long-range colony ships were loaded. Entire populations prepared for exile to distant galaxies. Better to flee than to be caught between human weapons and dissolution entities. Dr. Jungya, Earth's most respected philosopher, spoke out against the galactic division. We are making a terrible mistake. Humanity gained power we should not have. This is true. But dividing ourselves guarantees failure. The dissolution does not care about our politics. It will consume us all equally. Her words reached some, not enough. The breaking point came 6 months after the Defiant's return. A Preservation Front fleet attacked one of Earth's orbital defense stations. They claimed it was a preemptive strike against a threat to galactic security. 3,000 people lived on that station. Civilians, families, children, Admiral Hiram prepared to respond with overwhelming force. Captain Daesung, commander of Earth's new architect tech fleet, awaited orders to jump to the attack coordinates. His ships could glass the Preservation Front's core worlds and ours, but Hyansik intervened. No, he said, in an emergency command conference. We do not retaliate with genocide. That makes us the monsters they claim we are. They attacked civilians, Hiram said, her voice hard. They must answer for that. They will. But not with extinction. Hyansik turned to Nyung. Can we disable their fleet without casualties? Yes. The same way we disabled Velmer's demonstration force. Do it. Disable every ship that participated in the attack. Leave them drifting but alive. Then broadcast the recordings to the entire galaxy. Show everyone that we had the power to destroy them and chose mercy instead. It happened exactly as planned. The attacking fleet lost all systems simultaneously. Weapons went offline. Engines died. Life support remained active, but nothing else worked. They floated helplessly in space while coalition ships arrived to rescue them. The recordings went out on every frequency. Hyansik's message was simple. We do not want war. We do not want dominance. We want survival. The Preservation Front attacked us, and we responded with restraint. We could have killed every being on those ships. Instead, we saved them. Because the real enemy is coming, and we will need everyone alive to face it. Public opinion shifted. Not everywhere, but enough. Some Preservation Front species began reconsidering their allegiance. Maybe humanity could be trusted after all. Maybe mercy was more than propaganda, but Velmer was not convinced. This changes nothing. They showed restraint once. What about next time? What about when they decide restraint is no longer in their interest? Deep in Preservation Front space, secret projects continued. If they could not match architect technology, they would find another way. Old weapons were researched. Forbidden technologies were reconsidered. anything that might level the playing field. Meanwhile, at the galaxy's edge, the dimensional anomalies grew worse. Biami tracked them obsessively. More tiers appeared. Larger ones. The dissolution was no longer just probing. They were preparing entry points. 18 months, I said, she reported to Hyansik. I was optimistic. We have 12 at most. Maybe less. The captain looked older than ever. The stress of holding everything together was wearing him down. Then we need to force the issue. The galaxy must unite now. How? The Preservation Front will never trust us. The isolationists have already begun leaving. The coalition is barely holding together. We take representatives from every faction to the edge. We let them see the dissolution with their own eyes. Seeing is believing. It was a desperate plan. But desperation was all they had left. The expedition fleet assembled at the rim of known space. 30 ships. 10 from the coalition, including the Defiant. 5 from the Preservation Front sent reluctantly after intense negotiation. Even some isolationist vessels joined, curious despite their fear. Each ship carried observers from different species. Scientists, military officers, politicians, everyone who needed to see the truth. Captain Hyansik commanded the fleet from the Defiance Bridge. Beside him, Tejo represented Earth's diplomatic corps. In the cargo hold, Biami checked her equipment one last time. They were heading to the Terminus Rift, the region where dimensional boundaries were weakest. The journey took 3 days. As they approached, ship sensors began malfunctioning. Reality itself seemed less stable here. Stars flickered in and out of view. Time measurements became unreliable. Several crew members reported feeling watched by something vast and hungry. We are approaching the boundary, Na Young announced. Beginning deployment of observation probes. The probes launched, equipped with architect sensors that could detect interdimensional activity. What they sent back made everyone on the fleet go silent. The tiers in space-time were massive. Hundreds of them, scattered across light years. And through each tier, something moved. The dissolution entities appeared on screens throughout the fleet. Massive things that hurt to look at. Shadows that moved against light. Geometries that could not exist in normal space. By the ancestors, one of the Therian observers whispered, they are real. BOME provided narration as the probes transmitted data. Each entity is approximately 50 kilometers across. Though size is difficult to measure for beings that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They consume matter by forcing it out of phase with reality. Once out of phase, the matter simply ceases to exist. No energy release, no explosion, just deletion. One of the probes got too close to a tier. An entity noticed it. A tendril of living darkness reached through the dimensional barrier and touched the probe. It vanished. Not destroyed. Simply gone, as if it had never been. That is our fate if they break through, Hyansik said quietly. Every planet, every star, every living being, deleted from existence. The architects fought them for 10,000 years and lost. We have maybe 12 months before they complete their entry. A Preservation Front officer spoke up. How do we know your weapons can stop them? The architects failed, because we studied their failure, Nayoung replied. The architects made the same mistake you are making now. They divided themselves. Political factions, ideological disputes, power struggles. By the time they united, it was too late. The dissolution had already gained too strong a foothold. She brought up new data. Architect historical records, translated into galactic standard. They had weapons capable of stopping the invasion. But they used those weapons against each other in civil wars. By the time they realized their error, their civilization was already dying. Lieutenant Sunjo added, we found their final message in the ruins. A warning to any species that came after. United, you might survive. Divided, you will certainly die. We thought it was philosophical. It was practical military advice. The fleet watched as more dissolution entities moved through the tiers. Dozens, hundreds, too many to count. And behind them, deeper in the void, something even larger stirred. something that made the scouts look tiny by comparison. "What is that?" Tejo asked. Biomi's voice shook. "A dissolution mothership. We never saw one in the pocket dimension. The architect records called them devourers. Each one can consume an entire star system in days." The devourer moved closer to one of the tiers. Reality buckled around it. Space-time screamed. And then it pushed against the barrier. The tier widened. "They are testing the boundaries," Nyang said. "Seeing how much force is required to break through. At current rate, full breach in 11 months, 17 days. One of the isolationist captains immediately turned his ship around. "I have seen enough. My people are leaving this galaxy tonight." Most of the observers remained transfixed by horror. This was the enemy. Real, undeniable, and coming. Velmer's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. He was aboard one of the Preservation Front ships. "This does not change what you are, human. You are still dangerous. But I concede that the dissolution is more immediately dangerous. The Preservation Front will consider a temporary alliance." "Not good enough," Hyansik said. "We need full cooperation. Complete sharing of resources. Combined command structure. Anything less, and we lose." "You expect me to put my fleets under your command?" "No, I expect you to put your fleets under the command of whoever is best qualified to fight this enemy. If that is you, fine. If it is me, you swallow your pride. If it is someone else entirely, we both follow them." Silence on the channel. Then, surprisingly, Wrath spoke. "The Therian who had defected to the coalition. I will follow Captain Hyansik. He has fought the dissolution before. He knows their tactics. His experience makes him the logical choice." Other voices joined. Avarian captains. Luminary commanders. Even some from the Preservation Front. "Not everyone, but enough," Velmer finally responded. "Very well. Temporary unified command. But when this is over, we will discuss the fate of your weapons, human." "Deal, deal," Hyansik agreed. "Nyang, take us home. We have work to do." The fleet turned away from the Terminus Rift. Behind them, the dissolution entities continued their patient assault on reality. The clock was ticking. Back at Nexus 7, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. Every species present had seen the recordings from the expedition. The denials stopped. The political maneuvering paused. For the first time in galactic history, they voted unanimously. Full military alliance. Combined fleets. Shared technology. Total mobilization. Humanity would share architect defensive technology with all allied species. Weapons would remain under human control, but would be deployed to protect everyone. Captain Hyansik received command of all military forces. Admiral Myrim began coordinating the largest retrofit operation in history. 10,000 alien vessels needed architect technology integrated into their systems. Engineer G1 and her teams worked around the clock. Training alien engineers, adapting the technology to different ship designs, Na Young developed the reality anchors. Massive devices that would be deployed at key points throughout the galaxy. Stabilizing space-time and making it harder for the dissolution to break through. Each anchor required a small fleet to transport and protect. Sung Ho established training centers on 100 worlds. Soldiers from every species learned new combat doctrines. How to fight enemies that did not obey physics. How to target beings that existed in multiple places simultaneously. How to stay sane when facing entities that could delete you from existence. Tejo managed the political chaos. Keeping the alliance together required constant negotiation. Species that had hated each other for centuries were now expected to fight side by side. Old grievances resurfaced. New arguments began. He mediated, compromised, threatened, and occasionally begged. And through it all, the clock ticked down. 10 months until breach. 9 months. 8. The first reality anchors were deployed at the Terminus Rift. They activated with a pulse of energy that could be felt across light years. Space-time stabilized around them. The tiers stopped widening. For a moment, Everyone allowed themselves hope. Then the dissolution adapted. They found the anchors and began targeting them. Entities swarmed the defensive fleets. The first battle began. Human ships deployed architect weapons. The existence enforcer forced dissolutioned entities to obey physical laws, making them vulnerable. The temporal severance cut them off from their dimensional origin, weakening them. Conventional weapons from allied ships could now damage them, but there were so many. For every entity destroyed, 3 more appeared. The defensive fleets fought for days, holding the line around the anchors. Casualties mounted. Ships were lost. Entire crews deleted from existence, but the anchors held. 7 months, Biomi reported. They are learning, but we are slowing them down. If we can maintain this rate, we might have time to prepare proper defenses. Maintain meant constant warfare. Rotating fleets, endless battles, losses every day. But the alliance held. Species that had nearly gone to war with each other 6 months ago now saved each other's lives routinely. Velmer commanded one of the defensive fleets personally. His ship took heavy damage in a surprise attack. It was Captain Dae-sung, leading a human fleet, who jumped in to rescue them. Architect weapons cleared the entities. Therian and human crews worked together to repair both ships. Perhaps I was wrong about you, Velmer admitted in a private conversation afterward. You are still dangerous. But you are not monsters. We are what we had to become, Dae-sung replied. We can be better after this is over. If there is an after, 5 months until projected full breach. But the projections kept changing. The dissolution was learning faster than expected. New entity types appeared. Some could resist the existence enforcer. Others could partially phase through reality anchors. The war evolved. Nayoung worked with alien scientists to develop countermeasures. Upgraded anchors. New weapon frequencies. Better detection systems. It was an arms race against an enemy that had been doing this for millions of years. For months. Reality shattered at 17 different points along the galactic rim. Not small tears anymore. Major breaches. Stable portals through which dissolution forces poured like a dark tide. The scouts had been probing. This was the invasion. Captain Hyenzeki stood on the Defiance Bridge and watched the tactical display light up with threat markers. Thousands of entities. Hundreds of thousands. More appearing every second. Behind them, the massive devourers prepared to enter normal space. All fleets, battle positions, he ordered. His voice transmitted to 10,000 ships across dozens of species. Coalition forces engage Breach 17, that is the widest opening. Preservation front, you have breaches 12 through 15. Isolationist volunteers, support as needed. Reality anchor defense grids are your top priority. If the anchors fall, entire sectors go with them. The largest space battle in galactic history began at Breach 17. The Coalition fleet met the dissolution head-on. The Defiant led the charge. Nayoung activated every weapon system they possessed. The Causality Disruptor made enemy movement predictable. The Probability Shredder caused attacking entities to accidentally damage each other. Phase blades sliced through beings that conventional weapons could not touch. But it was not enough. There were too many. For every entity destroyed, 10 more came through the breach. We need to close the portal, Nayoung said. Otherwise, this is endless. How? Hyonsik asked. The architects never managed to close a breach once it fully opened. No, but they left behind one weapon they only used once. The nullifier. It collapses dimensional boundaries. Seals the breach permanently. What is the cost? Nayoung hesitated. It requires enormous power. More than any ship can generate. And it must be deployed at point-blank range to the breach. The ship that uses it will be caught in the collapse. There is no escape. Hyensik looked at his crew. Sung-ho, at tactical. Ji-won monitoring the engines. Biomi tracking entity movements. These people had been with him for 47 years. They had survived the impossible together. We always knew it might come to this, Sung-ho said quietly. We talked about it back in the pocket dimension. If using architect weapons was what it took to save everyone else, we would do it. Gi-1 nodded. The Defiant was lost once already. Better to be lost saving the galaxy than to watch it die. Bami smiled sadly. I am tired, Captain. 47 years of fighting? Of watching people die. If this is the end, at least it is a meaningful one. Na-Young met Hyeon-Sik's eyes. We go together. Like we always have. Hyeon-Sik took a breath. Then he opened a channel to Admiral Hiram. Admiral, the Defiant, is going to close Breach 17. Permanently. Redirect all forces to the other breaches. We will handle this one. Hyeon-Sik, what are you? She stopped. Understanding dawned. No. There has to be another way. There is not. And you know it. Take care of Earth for us. Tell them we did not come home empty-handed. We brought back the means to survive. He closed the channel before she could protest further. To his crew, he said simply, let us finish this. The Defiant broke formation and accelerated toward Breach 17. Allied ships tried to follow to provide support, but Hyeon-Sik ordered them back. This was something only his ship could do. Only his crew understood the architect systems well enough. Only they had lived with these weapons long enough to use them safely. They plunged into the heart of the dissolution swarm. Entities attacked from all sides. The shields held, reinforced by architect technology. They pushed deeper, closer to the breach. Around them, normal space began to break down. Physics stopped making sense. Time flowed backward, then sideways. But the Defiant continued forward. Nullifier charging, Na-Young reported. 60 seconds to full power. Dissolution entities noticed the energy buildup. They swarmed the ship. Thousands of them, trying to stop whatever the humans were doing. The shields began to fail under the assault. 30 seconds, Na-Young said. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5. Containment holding. Hyeon-Sik activated ship-wide communications one last time. To all hands, it has been an honor serving with you. We came back from the void once. Maybe we will do it again. But if not, know that you mattered. You all mattered. 10 seconds. The ship shuddered. More breaches. The entities were tearing through the hull. But they were too late. Nullifier at full charge. Firing. Reality screamed. The nullifier released energies that should not exist. Dimensional boundaries collapsed. The breach began to close. Dissolution entities caught in the effect simply ceased. Not destroyed, but unmade. The portal shrank rapidly, dragging everything nearby into its collapse, including the Defiant.
Goodbye.
Hyeon-Sik whispered. The ship fell into the closing breach. For a moment they hung suspended between dimensions. Then the portal sealed with a flash of light that could be seen across the sector. Breach 17 was gone, permanently closed. And with it, the Defiant and all aboard. Across the galaxy, millions of people watched it happen. Human, Therian, Avarian, Luminari, and hundreds of others. They watched the ship that had returned from the impossible vanish into the impossible once more. This time as heroes, the battle continued at the other 16 breaches. But something had changed. The dissolution forces faltered. Closing a breach was not supposed to be possible. The humans had done the impossible again. If one breach could close, others could too. Admiral Hiram took command. All ships with nullifier capability, identify yourselves. She had kept the secret. Hyeon-Sik was not the only one who could deploy the weapon. He had been the first. But Earth had installed nullifiers on 20 other ships, just in case. This is how we win, she broadcast to all forces. We close the breaches. Every ship with a nullifier will perform the same action Captain Hyeon-Sik just demonstrated. Volunteers only. If you choose this mission, you will not return. But you will save billions of lives. 20 ships responded. Human vessels. All of them. Crews who understood what they were volunteering for. Crews who had trained on architect systems and knew the cost. One by one, the ships moved to their assigned breaches. One by one, they activated their nullifiers. One by one, the breaches closed. And one by one, the ships vanished into dimensional collapse. It took 6 hours. When it was done, all 17 breaches were sealed. 21 human ships were gone. Over 4,000 crew members lost. But the invasion had been stopped. The dissolution could no longer enter in force. The surviving entities fought on. But without reinforcements, they were manageable. Allied fleets hunted them down over the following weeks. It was brutal, exhausting work, but it was possible. The tide had turned. 3 months after the last breach closed, the Galactic Council held a memorial service at Nexus 7. Representatives from every species attended. Even Velmer, especially Velmer, feared humanity, he said in a speech. We saw their power and assumed they would use it against us. We were fools. They used it to save us. Captain Hyansik and his crew could have run. They could have sealed Earth behind defenses and let the rest of us die. Instead, they came back. They warned us. They fought for us. They died for us. A monument was built. 21 ships were carved in stone. At the top, the Defiant. Captain Hyansik's final words were inscribed, "We found weapons no civilization should possess. We used them only to preserve civilization." Tejo stood before the monument afterward, alone. His old friend was gone. The man who had returned from the impossible had done the impossible one more time. He wanted to cry, but found he could not. There was too much work left to do. The dissolution still existed. The breaches were closed, but entities could potentially open new ones. The galaxy needed permanent defenses, permanent vigilance, and someone had to organize it. I will take care of it, he promised the monument. Humanity will watch the dimensional boundaries. We will be the Void Watch. No one will catch us unprepared again. He turned to leave, then paused. Deep-range sensors had picked up something. A faint signal from the collapsed breach where the Defiant had vanished. Probably nothing. Dimensional echoes often mimicked communication patterns. But when he listened to the recording, he heard it clearly. A voice, faint, impossibly distant, distorted by layers of broken reality. Hyansik's voice. Still. Alive in here. Find a way. Back. Always do. Caught. Impossible. The ship had been caught in dimensional collapse. Nothing could survive that. But then nothing should have survived 47 years in a pocket dimension either. He smiled. Of course you are. You stubborn, brilliant fool. Of course you are still fighting. He filed the recording in the highest security archives, marked it for long-term monitoring. If there was even a chance, even the smallest possibility, then humanity would watch that collapsed breach. They would listen. They would wait, because Captain Hyansik and the crew of the Defiant had proven something important. Humans did not give up. They did not accept the impossible. They survived. They adapted. They came home, and if they could do it once, they could do it again. Te-Ho looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, between dimensions, in spaces that should not exist, his friend was still alive, still fighting, still finding a way. Come home when you are ready, he whispered. We will be waiting. The galaxy had been saved. Humanity had sacrificed everything to ensure it. And in doing so, they had earned something they never had before.